to, there we go.
Okay, here we go.
I told you it's obnoxious.
Yep, every time.
Cool. I'll start with a short intro before we kick off the content. Start with myself. My name is Gerald Bachemeier. I'm the Chief Architect for AWS at Anchor. So we are part of the Hostopia group, and Anchor is the brand that is dealing with all the AWS implementations. And we do both managed service provider, but also a consultancy and do one-time engagements for customers. I've been working in AWS for the last around about 7 years across industries. For example, I've been working at Westpac in the cloud team. My initial background is in software engineering. I've spent many years as a Java developer. Pretty nerdy. I've written textbooks about Java and Spring and Hibernate. And doing all kinds of AWS at the moment. Got personally hooked when Alexa came out and I started writing the first skills. I looked up when my train goes to the city. And if I'm not doing nerdy stuff, then I love going for a surf on the weekend. And yeah, hand over to Anthony.
Yep. So guys, I'm Anthony. I'm a solutions engineer here at Anchor. I've been part of the company for about 3 years myself, and I've had about 14 years experience as a systems administrator overall. Originally started off by building games, text-based RPG games when I was about 17 in PHP, and moved on to doing systems, bit of BSD, bit of Linux, bit of everything. And basically have gotten to a point where I've been using AWS primarily after spending years doing on-prem and VMware solutions. So this will be my 3rd year doing it now, and currently have progressed through to my DevOps and Solutions Architect Pros over the time as well.
Nice one. Reminds me.
Nice. They are hard exams.
Yeah.
Personally, I found the DevOps one easy comparison to the SA Pro, but that was because of the comprehension factor.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I need to renew my SA Pro next month. It's motivating. I'll start with so we have the source code repository. The link is in the channel, in the Slack channel here as well in Zoom, and I think Gary posted it on the website. I will just go through the step-by-step agenda here. So we have done the intro. We'll talk about in general what are guardrails and how they help you, and then we go through the deployment steps. The deployment itself takes a while. I have written down the timings yesterday and a couple of scripts that we kick off. The thing that takes the longest is actually when then the recording kicks in for the guardrails. That's the reason why we had to pre-deploy most of the stuff. We will be deploying some CloudFormation templates during the demo. But yeah, if you follow along, we just go through that. We try to make it a bit easier as well, and have some bash scripts that you can use to kick off a couple of CloudFormation templates. I will start with what guardrails are. And you mentioned you previously had a control tower talk in your meetup, and control tower comes with a couple of guardrails out of the box, and they have detective guardrails. Those are guardrails that flag something if a rule is breached. For example, if you do not want to have a bucket to be public to everyone, or they can be, so that's the detective ones. And they can be preventative. Preventative means they prevent something from happening. For example, launching an AMI with a non-agreed on image ID. In under the hood, it's actually using Config, AWS Config, and this is what we will be going through. So Config provides you those guardrails in AWS. You can use that in one account. It works. It has a recorder in the background which records all the resource changes. So with resources, we refer to AWS resources like an S3 bucket. And you can get a timeline view as well. You can get an inventory. And it's pretty good for governance, seeing basically what's been going on in your account, especially if you have a behavior that you don't understand what happened there, figuring things out. But you can also see it like a safety net for developers. So for example, my background, software engineering, developers don't necessarily consider security enough, but you can provide those guardrails so that the devs can still go along, experiment. But then there are things that are flagged, for example, security groups that are open. So that's Guardrails in a nutshell. You can see it as a combination of governance, but also supporting the development team. When we do the demo, there will be a slight charge that occurs, and that really depends on the accounts that you use. So we're using a multi-account setup, so we use 2 accounts. You could do that if you want to do in 1 account, but it will be closer to the real demo if you use 2. If you have them 2 accounts handy. The cost depends on the resources that you record. So just stepping through that quickly, it really depends on the number of resources that are being recorded. And we have a stack. We have a CloudFormation template that we deploy, which will generate some findings. And if you go with that one, the cost will be lower than $1 for the demo. It's probably more around the 50-cent mark. If you deploy the demo to an account where there's lots of resources, then the cost will obviously be higher. And there are different prices here for, this is the one for AWS Config. We will use a conformance pack as well at the end. And that one has a slightly different pricing. It's at the end a little bit pricier. But again, if you follow along the demo, we will be under the $1 mark. And we will also go through the cleanup steps. And we have cleanup scripts as well that will help you. Okay, I will guide you now through the code structure and the accounts and the regions, how we have set that up. I will start with so when you download the code from the repository, we have a folder structure, which is aggregate account. So that's for everything that goes into the account where we do the aggregation, where we record the information for the other accounts. And then we have an application account, which is you can call it a member account. So that's one of the source accounts where the information will be fed into the aggregation account. We have one folder for conformance packs. We'll deploy that later on. We have the folder for scripts. I will go through that. And we have that one, there's one illustration, which I just used, which basically explains how does config work. And you can set up your config across several accounts and regions. The config data gets then into the aggregator, and with the aggregator, you get a unified view across accounts and regions. So you could set that up for just 1 account in 1 region, but we will go through multi-account and multi-region setup in this demo. And that's where I think that the real power is of config, because you can govern across regions. That makes just a bit easier. The account structure that we will use, so I already said it's 2 accounts that we use. It would be, the whole demo would be a bit easier if we deployed the aggregator into the master account of an organization. We're not doing that for demo purposes because you will obviously see the account numbers of the AWS accounts, and we want to delete them after the demo. So therefore, there are a couple of extra steps that we will call out. Okay, maybe. So we have done the regions, then the overview. I will talk you through the scripts, then you can kick off the script. I'll do the callouts first, a couple of callouts. So as I said, we do the setup with 2 accounts. If you did that if you deployed the demo to an AWS organization, by the way, can you see my font type? Is that big enough, or do you want me to zoom in?
It looks clear enough to me.
Yeah, okay. If you wanted to deploy it into an AWS organization, then you have to enable all the features in the organization. So when you go in there is a tick box, enable either just individual features, and you can go through them, or all of them. You also need to enable CloudFormation delegation. That way, that master account can then deploy into the other accounts of the organization, or you could delegate. You can have a delegated management account, and the delegated account can do that. Yeah, so as I said, we deploy that into 1 account. We call that the aggregator account. And in that scenario where we go with the account model, we need an S3 bucket in every account that records, and also that bucket needs to be in every region. So in our example, we use 2 accounts and 2 regions, so that's 4 buckets. And the difference there is the recording itself will be enabled on the account level and OU level. So on the OU level, that just scales more. Imagine if you had 100 accounts and you structured it by business areas, for example, it's so much easier to do it on an organizational unit level rather than listing out all the accounts and all the regions that you need to do. So we also enable the recording in the aggregator account, just for demo purposes. Typically, in a production account, you would not do that. You would just do that in all the member accounts. The account with the aggregator needs an IAM role, and that one is in our CloudFormation stacks. That's in our CloudFormation templates. That's the template called IAM stackset admin role, and in the member account, you need a role that's called stackset exec role, and that one has a trust relationship with that admin role in the aggregator account. We will talk you through the resource cleanup at the end, and I will start. If there are any questions right now, we'll answer them now, or otherwise I will just start on the code. Okay, no questions so far. Okay, we go. If you are in the repo, you're here in the setup steps. A thing that you need to do is you need to tailor the scripts to your account IDs, so the accounts that you're using and the regions that you plan on using. As I said, that's a bit easier if you did that in a proper way, deploying it to OU. And typically in a production environment, you would not run that with a bash script out of your local box. You use code pipeline or whatever else for the overall orchestration. So those are all the scripts that require modification, where you need to key in the account ID or the region or both. So when it's only the region, I'm calling it out here. It's the region only. The scripts here are build aggregator, that does the majority of the build for the aggregator account. And when we deploy stack sets, and they take quite a while, that's the reason why I just had to split that into two scripts. So we need to wait until the stack set instances are deployed. So a stack set is a construct where you can deploy a CloudFormation template into several regions and accounts. To do that, you deploy first the stack set, which defines the actual template. Then you deploy the stack set instances by defining to which regions or OUs and accounts they need to go. And that's the part that takes long. Long really depends on the number of resources, but we're talking minutes, whereas the first one, the stack set itself, is a matter of seconds. So we have two parts to the aggregation account. We have a build script for the member account. That's the one we will be kicking off first. Then for the cleanup, we have a delete the S3 bucket script and this to destroy scripts for each of the accounts. And then for the conformance pack, we have a separate script. I'll just start with the first one. And if you follow those instructions, so the first script that we are grabbing is the JSON files, the patch. Yeah, that's right. You need to update the JSON files as well. So we have parameters and into the CloudFormation templates. So those are that's a list of the parameter files that you need to update as well before you run those templates.
Presently, those files will have empty values, so they will fail to deploy, much the same of all the bash scripts. You'll actually see the account IDs as variables at the top of them. Again, not the normal way you'd roll things out, but in this situation, when we're playing with two ad hoc accounts, that's the way we can do it.
Yeah, and also that's one. So this is obviously not production ready. Also, when you look at how fine-grained security is, that's not production ready as well. This is really for demo purposes. There's one role that has more privileges than necessary, for example. Okay, so we start on the member account and look into the build member as script, and that's this one here. If you use Visual Studio Code, what I like here on the side, you can have two different consoles open. That makes it easier to switch between accounts. And then I give them a name, so it's a bit clearer where I'm in. And I just go into the script directory in here. So yes, you need to tailor the region in here. what we do is the script it deploys a CloudFormation template, and depending on if you have parameter, it's reading in the parameter list and converts that into a separate list here, or otherwise it does not do that. It just deploys the template itself. So the first one that we deploy into the member account is the stack-set execute role. So that's the role that we need so that the aggregator account can actually deploy CloudFormation into the member account. And we can see that has a parameter file. So I jump into that. That's the stack-set execute role in the member account or application account. This is our role here. If you wanted to deploy that script, by the way, then it's just build member sh. I'm not hitting enter now because we already deployed it, but that will kick off the template and deploy that will kick off the script and deploy the templates. If you can't run a bash script because you're on a different OS, we do have the deployment statements here in CloudFormation on top of every template as well. That should make it easier. It's just a bit more effort, but you can just copy and paste that. And you don't forget, you need to change those variables here in the files. So that's the variables that are read into the parameter section here. So this one, the first one is kicking off the role. With that role, then we can establish that trust relationship with the administrator account, which is the one where we deploy the aggregator into. And that one enables us to do the CloudFormation templates. The next script that the next template that we're kicking off is the bed infrastructure, bed architecture infrastructure. So we need a couple of findings for this demo. This one deploys a VPC and the infrastructure to deploy an instance later on. I'll just open that template. Couple of resources that we have in here are we create a VPC, we create an internet gateway, the attachment for it, we create a public subnet. That's the one where we then at the end deploy an instance into the routing table and the routes itself. Instance profile, so having that deployed earlier speeds then up the instantiation later on, and the role that we need for the instance profile. So that role then, yeah, wouldn't need any permissions really. It's just, yeah, it's just this one is a good one to have if you want to connect via the SSM manager and you don't want to deploy an SSH key onto the box. Then, yeah, you can enable. Sorry, no, that's why we need to install the SSM manager. This one is actually pretty useless here. So as I said, from a security point of view, it's not up to production scale. It could be a bit tighter. The other infrastructure stack we deploy is an S3 bucket that is open, and that should then bring up some findings as well. So it doesn't have any blocked ACLs, and it's open, which we will then identify later on. This one, the compute one, ignore that. That's just relevant at the end. And that, yeah, just checking the list. We have gone through the scripts here. Aggregator account, okay. Cool. I will just check if we have gone through all the content of the first part. We've gone through the callouts. We've done the bed architecture templates. I just want to give you a quick overview in config itself, how it looks like. And then after that, I will hand over to Anthony. We are now in the member account. So that's not the recording account, that's the source account. What we can see here is the dashboard itself. The dashboard shows you some inventory, that's a handy to have to see. So this is the single account view because we're currently in the member account. The aggregated account is very helpful because you get a holistic view. We haven't deployed any conformance packs yet. There's nothing in here. We can see rules that are already deployed, and there's already something that's not compliant. And in here, because we're not in the aggregator account, you can't see anything. So that's when you go to the different account. This was the member account. If you go into config, of course I timed out here. Let me just refresh. Yeah. So in here, you can go into the aggregator rules.
It dropped you back to the other account again.
Yeah, okay. Hold on, let me just fix that up. Oh, that's not cool.
Do you want me to take over?
No, I'm just trying to fix that up. You know what? I'll just do what I wanted to show now in this account. Couple nice features here. You get advanced queries here in there as well. You can run. There won't be any findings here, but that's a nice one if you want to search. If you have a lot of resources going on in your account, in a production account, and you look for particular resource types, for example, security groups, then you can do that, and it will list you out all the security groups that you have in which account. So if you do that in the aggregated view, it will give you that for each of the accounts. And it shows you also in which region and the ARN from it. So that's quite a handy feature. That's it for the first part. Do you have any questions around that? I take silence as a no, and I will hand over to Anthony and stop sharing. You're still on mute, by the way.
Yep, I am, and I can't share because the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Can someone fix that?
You should be right now.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you. So get the right desktop. So hopefully you guys can see that. I was following in the background with what Gerald was doing as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, I've actually got the right account open, thankfully. One of the things Gerald was continuing on was just showing this, which was the aggregator that will actually show up, tells you the account and region in that regard. Let me bring up my VS Code, so I can actually see what I'm doing. So the first thing we were doing in setting up the aggregator accounts, I think that was where we're up to, right, Gerald?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got this the script here for the aggregation build, which basically we have to go through, do the admin roles, exec roles, which has been pointed on. We actually have to deploy the configuration aggregator itself.